we'd love to have you in our circle. Anyway, so that's those Spain for like 9 days and then Baltimore.
Where are you going to Spain?
Barcelona and Mallorca.
Have you been to Spain before?
I've been, when I was in college, I did the hitchhiking thing. I went to Ibiza. But like that was sort of, you know, that was.
So how do you,
Thank you.
you ever been to Granada?
You talking Nancy, you mean?
Granada, Spain.
No, just Ibiza. So now we're going to Barcelona.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Granada's in the south, and it's the kind of Moorish
Yeah.
town. It's where the Alhambra is, which was the Sultan's giant palace. It's where the gypsies live in caves. Power of Buddha.
Oh, yeah.
6 months.
And you've been?
I've been to Europe once, and I was in Prague, and
Oh, wow.
which is my favorite place,
Yeah.
and Budapest, and Vienna.
How long?
Hmm.
How long ago?
2007.
I've never been to Prague. That's it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Prague is totally incredible.
I know. That's what I
The old Jewish cemetery, until I started coming here, was the most spiritual I've ever felt.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know each other?
Yeah,
Okay. I figured.
From services.
Yeah, I think I just want to make sure.
yeah.
So here's my question for the two of you
Hmm.
in terms of this service. I am obviously pretty, let's see, liberal in my observance. But often, the reason we do Yizkor on the second day of the holiday, which is not really observed in the Reformed views, because oftentimes people who are observing Yizkor, right? So there's obviously not going to be an Indian in terms of Kaddish. Now we will have people maybe some watching on the street. Are you guys okay to say Kaddish regardless? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gone to the Easter service in a very long time.
Well,
I have been to a number of churches here. I rarely was there an actual.
yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Bobby used to lead it, remember? Bobby used to lead this year, and he brings schnapps, and that was, yeah, but he really did coach. You probably don't have to be here when Bobby was coming, but he was pre-COVID. Bobby from wonderful guy. He's been around here for a long time. This was his service. He loved. Yeah, he lives at Covenant House now. He moved, he lived in an apartment in Maplewood forever. no, for sure he's got great kids.
I don't think I've made kids.
You know, they don't work out.
Well, I know, but sometimes they're here, right?
Once in a while.
And when are you doing, I'm gonna be gone like, for Sarah, but neither is Heather, but that's okay. I did. How did you walk? Did you join the Tikkun Shavuot?
And I was thinking, wow, there's like, 15, 20 people here that, for some reason, they all want to be here. I want to hear from the people, That's, I've been to all kinds of conferences and talks and seminars.
Right.
It's always the people who are really provide what we need things.
Yes.
Good speakers.
Do you ever go to the Oasis things?
What's that?
Oasis. They're wonderful.
Stick over adult. I have the website.
So, Robert works with, well, you could tell better than I, but with hospice patients. Hi, Steve Skranka.
My goodness, you're overwhelmed this morning.
Well, you're here, so I'm overwhelmed.
Oh, come on. If you have any more bracelets, your arm is going to fall off.
There's a
Are you sure that
Hold on.
your circulation works?
hold on. There's a student who's having her bat mitzvah in January, Mira, who they come to services every Saturday. Her older sister had a bat mitzvah, and Mira she makes jewelry, and Nancy's my witness. She has bracelets up to each elbow, and then, have you seen this person? She's awesome. She's she's an amazing young person. So when you said that to me, I was picturing her, I'm like, you ain't seen nothing yet, Steve Skranka. Mira, yeah. Yeah. All right.
They're very different.
Yeah. All right, we're on? Okay. I'm glad we're here, and whoever's streaming in, I'm glad you're here, and we're going to do a few of the morning prayers, and then the heart of Yizkor is, of course, remembrance, and we'll do that. So whoever, one of the traditions at CRC is, before we say Kaddish and before we say the Yizkor prayers, to share to the extent that people want to, kind of like we do at Shiva. It's kind of like a Shiva, it's an intimate circle and people who are contemplating loss and reflecting on loss and reflecting on loved ones. So people will be able to tell stories, share some thoughts if that feels right for you in this moment. And if people are watching the stream, that encourage them to, while we're sharing, to think about the people that you're remembering, and maybe even write down some of the stories or text a friend or a family member what you're thinking about and what you're feeling. Everybody has here in our circle the Machzor for High Holidays, which might seem odd because we're a number of months away from High Holidays. But the High Holiday services at Yom Kippur includes a Yizkor service, right? And so in our Machzor, in our High Holiday prayer book, we actually have a Yizkor service. We had for a while a standalone, a very little booklet for Yizkor. We can't seem to locate it, but it's basically this. It's basically this, and just for people that want the background. Yizkor services are attached to 4 Jewish holidays throughout the year. I think most people that intentionally observe Yizkor know that because it's your path. But the 3 pilgrimage holidays. The traditional Torah pilgrimage holidays all have Yizkor attached to them. So I'll start at the beginning of the Jewish year, Sukkot. Really Shemini Atzeret, which is the 8th day of Sukkot, but that's when people observe that Yizkor. And then moving on from the fall to the spring to Passover, at the end of Passover, 7 days if you're Reform observant and 8 days if you're more traditional observant. But either way, at the end of Passover is another chance to have a Yizkor service, just specifically about loved ones who are remembering. And then finally, this Yizkor, not finally, but finally in terms of the three, this service is attached to Shavuot, which in the Reform world and in Israel ended yesterday, right, because of one day. Today is the second day of Shavuot. We decided that to the extent that we do Yizkor, that we would kind of follow the traditional calendar for Yizkor only, on the assumption that that's sort of people that observe Yizkor may tend to know that calendar. Right or wrong, that's kind of what we decided a long time ago. So that's why we're here for Shavuot, the sort of summer or late spring pilgrimage festival, and then Yom Kippur in the fall. So is that every season covered? Fall, I think so, yeah. Fall, and then, oh, maybe not winter. There's not a Yizkor in the winter. 4, so Sukkot, Passover, Shavuot, and Yom Kippur. Yeah. So not winter, but
The festivals when you trek to the temple.
the pilgrimage festivals they literally are Shlosha Regalim, the 3 walking holidays, because Steve is correct. The tradition was wherever you were, you would trek. I think the Muslim word is the Hajj. You would make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to observe the holiday. And all 3 of them have agricultural sort of purposes, right? Planting, first growth, and then Passover. Planting is Passover, Shavuot is first growth, and then Sukkot is the full harvest, right? So that is true. So anyways, that's where we are. It's Yizkor, it's a remembrance. In the Machzor, the High Holiday Prayer Book, it's page 184 is where we'll start at 180. We'll go through a couple of these morning prayers, and then remembrance, and then El Malei Rachamim and Kaddish. And that's kind of our order of service. So, I don't know, maybe for each other, should we go around and just say, kind of make sure we all know in this circle who's here, and the people who are watching knows. You could use your first name or last name, but just so that we're connected even more than normal. So I am Randy.
I am Steve.
We're neighbors.
You're neighbors.
Michael.
I'm sorry, tell me.
Michael.
Michael.
And Steve, just so you know, because you're here, Michael works at CRC as our.
Oh, that's the Michael you're always talking to.
Yes.
That's the mic that
So I can read chat.
There he is.
Michael's behind the scenes, literally in the streaming booth. So he's come out
Thank you, Michael.
front. Yes, Steve watches services, so you.
Every Friday.
Yeah.
Nancy.
There we go. 180. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai dai yai dai 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 yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai 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 dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai 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 dai 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 dai. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, Osei Shamayim va'aretz, Ezri me'im Adonai, Osei Shamayim va'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? Our help will come from the source of those timeless mountains, the source of all creation, the power that fashions the heavens and the earth, the power that sustains life, even in the midst of death. But especially mourners, and on Yizkor, we're all mourners, we all know loss. We have the right to ask, where do we find that power that sustains life, even in the midst of death? And one of the answers is that it is neither near nor far, neither within nor without. For the eternals is not a presence that can be locked into place or bound into time. God is the eternal presence, your presence and mine. God is when we are present to one another the way we are present with one another right now. The help we seek is the help each of us can offer. Now and here, let us allow the pain of death to wash over us, to cleanse us of the petty hurts that so often occupy our hearts. Then we might open our lives to the compassion that arises when we recognize that we are not only one in good moments and in holy moments and wonderful moments, but we are also one in moments of suffering and pain and loss. If there is to be healing, let it come from us. If there is to be love, it must come from us. If there is to be peace, let it come from us now. Adonai yishmar te'echa uvoecha me'eta v'ad olam. May the eternal one now guard all of our loved ones who we are remembering for a blessing, and guard all of us, our coming and our going, now and forever. Amen. Because it's a morning service, Yizkor, do one morning prayer, Modeh Ani, awakening, greeting the morning, appreciating the blessings of the day, even though we are here for a difficult reason, and maybe not difficult, yes, and also a welcome reason, to remember. But still in all, it's a new day for us, and so it's Modeh Ani Lifanecha. You can say Melech or Ruach, Chai v'Kayam, being thankful for the spirit of life that animates us, that woke us up this morning to face the day with all of its blessings and all of its challenges. So let's just chant that a few times for the morning. Modeh ani lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha, modeh ani lefanecha, modeh ani lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha, modeh ani lefanecha. Shema, a morning Shema. Shema is associated with so many different things in Jewish life, but it is associated with death, because in Jewish tradition, if a person is able to say the Shema, if they know, they're cognizant that they're going to die soon, that one of the traditions was for them to say the Shema, and if they can't say it for themselves, then it's left to their loved ones, if we can, to say it for them, and so it is connected with life and death and remembrance. And I countless times I've said Shema with people at hospitals. With Sarah, I remember that. And with my own mom just a year ago, and just trying to have us focus on what's most important in those times of being together before the end of life. The other thing about Shema I think about in terms of life and death is the metaphor I often use of the ocean, and the idea that, because of the oneness of the Shema, that when we're alive, we're like waves in an ocean. We manifest ourselves as a unique self, like a wave. But if you think about the waves in the ocean, when the wave is done being a wave, it doesn't disappear. It just becomes part of the ocean again, right? And so in some ways, it's like us and our loved ones. When we're alive, we manifest ourselves like a brilliant, beautiful, unique wave. But when our bodies can't sustain us anymore, and when we die, which is part of life for all of us, we also, I think, don't disappear. We become part of the ocean that is the fabric of all creation, and most especially in the hearts and minds of the people who we impacted, just like the people we're here to remember impacted us, so they really haven't disappeared. We miss them physically, their waveness, but they're here. So a deep breath, channeling our loved ones and our ancestors and ourselves, those that are here and those that are no longer here and those that are yet to exist. We're all connected. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Amen. I thought this would be the time that if whoever in this circle wants to say some words, a story, a thought, maybe about the person or the people that you've come here to say Yizkor for and remember that, and you certainly have permission to share, and you have permission to not. That's just, everyone's different, and we're different at different moments, but it's kind of become, like I said, a tradition, because there are always sort of intimate services like this that we have, and we should always do it, but especially at a service like this, to give each other the opportunity to speak. So, Robert, you got something prepared?
Well, actually,
What should we do with the microphone? Should I just pass it around? Or will people? Okay, let's do that, just for the people that are watching. Hold on one sec, Robert, we're gonna get you. Well.
I'll just pass this around to.
Oh. You want to say something about it?
Yeah, so,
Here.
No, send your butterfly around.
that's, I'm here in remembrance particularly of my wife, Sarah. A week from Saturday will be the 14th yahrzeit. It's hard to believe, it's hard to believe. And sometimes I just find myself, where did you go? We spent a long time together, we knew each other for 38 years back in college, and I just remember sometimes I turn and go, where are you? It's like you were just here.
Yeah.
And it's a very profound absence. This month, June, is 50 years ago that Sarah and I painted our first mural, which was in downtown St. Louis, which was on Linda's father's building downtown. So
Wow.
109 North 8th Street.
Wow, that's amazing.
And in fact, one of the reasons I believe Saul let us have this wall was because Linda was an artist, and so he could kind of relate. Oh, two more art. I mean, you'll see what we look like here. This is actually
Oh my gosh.
a picture of us right when we finished.
Oh my God, Robert.
We're two hippies right out of college.
Well, but you really started something. This was at a time when downtown was looking fairly shabby.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
Oh, my God.
And the
buildings
mural- and the
sitting
mural
around, and
was,
everybody thought this was
basically,
sort of a nutty thing to do.
it's the emergence of a butterfly from a cocoon. And
Who's
4
that yippee?
animals. Very, very large,
Amazing.
What year?
74.
Yeah, 50 years.
I was here.
And,
That picture's,
And they chose a butterfly, which was certainly appropriate.
right, so we were trying to, you know, give a voice to the transformation that was kind of beginning to happen, but a lot of people wanted to happen, especially downtown. And
Oh, I remember this,
though we hadn't,
except I just lost it.
Uh-oh.
It's there.
though we hadn't planned on becoming mural painters, that's what we did. And,
That's-
I think you had to have your hair like that again.
It's a good look, it's a good look.
Good luck.
yeah,
Michael and I agree.
and then I stopped doing murals for a while, and then my daughter got me back into it in 2015, and we did a lot of work together.
If he shows that, can the camera pick it up?
Oh,
No, that's okay. But Sarah, I was, so when I first met her, this is a good little story. I was in college, and I was going to the second floor of the library to meet this friend of mine, my best friend. And it was the end of class, and I was standing in a doorway, and everyone's milling around because the class is over. And then for one moment, everybody parted, and there's this person on the other side of the room, and she's wearing a black leather jacket, and she looked like so bad. And I went, oh, who's that? And then whoop, everybody came back together. Didn't see her again for 3 months.
this is Antioch, right?
And then at Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Then we took a class together in video production. And we were one of the first places in the world to have portable video equipment, which was brand new at the time. And our teachers were artists, so yeah, you can record stuff. What else can we do? So we each had to do a video. This is video 3 now. And Sarah's was very mysterious. And it had to do with place. You didn't know where you were, but slowly there were these little clues that came in to tell you where you were, and I just thought, wow, I started college as a biochemistry major, so I migrated over to the art department when I realized I was an artist, and it was my brother who was a scientist. And for Sarah's and my first date, she blindfolded me and led me around town with the sound of her voice all night long.
That's way cool.
So,
Talk about a blind date.
there's a part I can tell you. You know, it was always like that. I mean, the whole life long, she always was just a mysterious person, and really appreciated everybody's individuality. I mean, in our house, none of the wine glasses match, none of the chairs match. It was like, pick something that's reflecting how you are tonight, how you feel. So a lot of her personal artwork, you know, was individual chairs, individual cars, individual people. And it was always like, what makes something really unique? You know, you look back over your life together and think about all the stuff that was great and also the missed opportunities, and you know, there's a lot of that. And her death was a surprise. When Randy was actually with me, I went to see the doctor. So she had ovarian cancer for 4.5 years, and late diagnosis, which is typical for women who get it. And so the doctor wanted to tell me how long she had to live. And I went to see him, and he said a few weeks, which was mind-blowing. And I just didn't know what to do or how to be. And Randy happened to be coming up to my house that morning. And we were sitting there, and then I got a call from the hospital. She ended up dying 6 hours later. So we were totally unprepared. I mean, we weren't really prepared because she didn't want to talk about it. So there was a lot of like devastation and souls and just, you still deal with it in different ways. It was great that Randy happened to be with me that morning and I came to the hospital later. And that's really part of the reason I got into hospice work. It had to do with personal healing, but also I saw that all the things that I did, that Sarah encouraged, just took this new form of the way to be with people, to use what talents I have sublimating. So something really wonderful did come out of that, this tragedy. And that helps balance out the loss. Wandering,
Yeah.
How do you talk about 38
Just like that.
decades?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Robert. May her memory be a blessing.
Thank you.
And we should say, if it's okay, that her artwork is hanging up right here in the Oneg room.
Right, yeah, and it'll be coming down.
Yeah.
Yizkor is in a sense no different than any other day because these are the people that are with me always. My parents, my in-laws, and my husband. I had a wonderful childhood. I had fantastic mother-in-law and father-in-law, and I like to say and always think that I learned how to be a mother-in-law from my mother-in-law because she was everything anyone would want. I met Myron. I was starting my junior year in college.
Myron, his name was?
Myron. And he was working at WashU in the social sciences department and playing a lot of bridge in the Bears Den. And his bridge partner happened to be a friend of mine from high school. So I started off watching their bridge games. He was 9.5 years older than me and had been divorced after a very short marriage. And I wasn't looking for somebody, and I certainly wasn't looking for him. He was one of the most caring, giving people I've ever known, certainly one of the most ethical. And we were married for 37 years. The last 9 of which he suffered with an amputation. But we still, we still had 9 good years. And I remember joking with him as the ambulance came to pick him up because for a week we thought he had the flu. And I'd been in touch with the doctor. And it just, he just wasn't getting better. And finally I called and he said, just go to the emergency room. So at that time, by that time he couldn't get out of the house. So the ambulance picked him up and my sister-in-law was sitting there with me. And we were joking, you're going to the hospital and in a couple hours we'll turn around and they'll bring you home. And really certainly thought that. Well, that's not exactly what happened. And he was put in intensive care, and it was a couple of days. We were lucky at the hospital to have a male nurse who really cared about people, and he really cared how each individual was reacting to this. And I, of course, was lucky to have Jonathan and Steph.
Yeah.
And some dear friends that were by my side. But it's like Robert, it doesn't go away. You get through the initial pain and you you learn from the experience, you learn from the life that you shared, and hopefully then you take the course that seems the best for you, and know that your people would be proud of you, are still in many, many ways with you, and like you, Robert, there's very little time that I don't feel he's with me in some way, shape, or form. Michael,
What year did he pass away?
2005.
2005.
It'll be 19 years.
When when you all were coming for the alternative services,
Right.
it was aft, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it was after.
Yeah.
For many reasons, which I'm not going to go into now. There was a period of time where we didn't do much of anything.
Yeah. May his memory be a
Thank you.
blessing. And,
Go.
Miles,
Oh, come on.
I
Miles,
look at
Come on,
Miles and
come
think,
on,
oh my
you-
God,
Yeah.
he would have just loved Miles so much.
Nobody has
What
sat
year
here
wa-
and lost nobody.
what year,
2009,
You don't
when
want
was
to-
Miles born?
2009.
Is he named after?
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
that's why it's with a Y instead of an I.
Oh, for Myron, okay. Thank you, and thanks for being here, Michael, and I know. So, my friend,
You don't want to give me a microphone. I'll never give it back.
It's okay, Steve.
Well, next April, I will be 90.
It's not for-
Next April, I will be 90.
I don't believe that.
neither do I.
Lovely, I appreciate that. My doctors don't either. Anyway, and my cardiologist says when I'm 95, he'll do a little heart procedure and I can live another 10 years.
Not bad.
But I think he's teasing. Needless to say, at that stage, there are an awful lot of people I could talk about, including parents who both left quite suddenly, grandparents. I only knew two of them really because one died when I was 5 and the other one died the year I was born. And then, so my father's mother was kind of a buddy. She was very special. And she drove herself to her last illness at the St. Mary's Hospital. But I was in first year law school, and so I only got to come and sell her goodbye in the hospital. I didn't get to come back for her funeral, which I gather was quite a deal. And my brother wrote a wonderful poem about it, which I have. I think principally I would talk to you about my wife, Linda, of course. And we were together for 52 years. And I met her my second year in law school, I think. And I made her late to her first session of her seminar on, I think it was modern painting. And she had been given special permission to take this senior class. And she was late, so she missed the instructions about how the seminar was going to be conducted. I don't think she ever really forgave me.
Did she dream about it? Did she have dreams about it?
I don't know, but she was not too pleased about it. Because that was important to her. And she actually went on and was secretary to Alfred Barr at the Museum of Modern Art not very long. Because when he hired her, he asked her if she had any steady boyfriends or anything. And she said, oh, no. And then 6 months later, we got married. Anyway, I think she thought what she said was true, but I didn't.
Wow.
In fact, it was very interesting because when she moved to New York, she and 4, I think, friends signed a 5-year lease on an apartment. And I found that out from the father of her best friend, who was in St. Louis. And he said, did you know they signed a 5-year lease? I thought, oh, no. Turned out it was a very favorable apartment, no problem subleasing it once they all disappeared. They didn't all disappear, most of them did. Anyway, what can I say? I have an awful lot of trouble letting go when somebody dies. And I'm not very good in the lead up to it for that reason. I never know. Of course, I think each person is different, and you kind of have to take your lead from that person. And certainly everybody has a different approach to talking to their doctors or to talking about their medical condition if they have that opportunity. And some people don't want to talk about it at all. Some people are in denial. And I tend to be an optimistic fighter, and I have this conception that if you're optimistic, your immune system works better and you're going to live longer. But Randy, I have often wondered, when you guys talk about Neshuma and about how we have these souls, if they don't get recycled, it's going to be awfully crowded up there. So Linda always thought her soul would get recycled. But I sort of figure that it hangs around till I'm gone. And I think it, like you, I think it comes and visits me all the time. She was very special in being able to see things in the world that other people didn't take the time to see. So we'd go walking, and there'd be some leaf on the ground, and she'd say, "Oh, isn't that a beautiful magenta color?" And I'd say, "What? It's a dead leaf." Well, she said, "It's kind of tongue-colored." And, we'd be sitting in the kitchen, and she'd say, "Look at that." And I'd say, "Look at what?" And she'd say, "Look at how the light is playing on the table from the reflection." We have old windows in our house that have been there since 1914, and so the light is distorted. And she loved it. I said, "Can't we get new glass?" "No, absolutely not." So we don't. And as a painter, she mostly painted things that she could see from her home and from her studio. And she insisted on putting her studio in the back of our lot rather than renting one like lots of her friends did, down on Compton or someplace. I thought it would be good for her to get out of the house. She thought it would be good for her to stay there. So she'd have her cup of coffee, and she'd make her transition. And you can read all about this because she wrote about it, and it's on her website at lindaskranka.com, in case anybody's listening up there.
And us.
Skranka is Skrainka. So lindaskranka.com, and you'll see a lot of her wonderful work. And I guess I'll tell you one story that I feel badly about. So, they gave us a lot of nonsense during her last illness. Let me back up one. Linda had a cancer. Cancer seemed to run in her family. Virtually everybody in her family had cancer. Both grandparents, her mother and her father.
Wow.
And people will tell you that it's not inherited, but I don't believe it. And I think the people down at MD Anderson, when they listen to her family history, don't totally believe it either. But they don't know. So about 14 or 15 years, or maybe more, before she died, she was diagnosed with a form of melanoma and was told she had 18 months to live. That was 14 years before she died. So needless to say, I was spoiled. So when she got diagnosed belatedly with a different form of melanoma that was even rarer than the first one, I thought, okay, well, we beat that one, we'll beat this one. But as it turned out, even though we were given a lot of nonsense along the way about how she was cancer-free and so on, she wasn't cancer-free, and she died, but she was doing everything, she was eating antioxidants and exercising, and she was very athletic. But interestingly, her competition was something that it was hard for her to get under control as a child. And as an adult, you would have to work very hard to find it, except in her achievements. So I want to do one confession and tell you one other thing. The confession is we're out taking walks because she insisted on taking walks every day, no matter how ill she was. And so we're taking a walk in the neighborhood, and I'm whistling something, and I can't figure out. I mean, when I whistle things when I walk, I don't pay any attention to what I'm whistling. It's just whatever comes into my mind. And so she turns to me and she says, "Can't you whistle something else?" It turned out I was whistling September Song. And she was a little upset about it being a long, long time when you get to, when days get short, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, my God, how thoughtless can you be? And I was very sad about that. Then I will tell you one last thing. She was working on a triptych when she died, which was, she'd probably been working on it. I wouldn't be surprised if it had been 10 years. And the first picture was a picture of me in our kitchen, sort of. When I say sort of, because there are always all these reflections. And indeed, we did a retrospective of her work after she died called Reflections Close to Home.
At Burroughs, right?
Well, there was a short show at Burroughs, but there was a large show at St. Louis University Museum, SLUMA. And that was the comprehensive one. Anyway, that one had been shown several times by itself. Then there was a picture of the two of us sort of merged in the middle.
Yeah.
And you can't tell whether one of us is coming into the house or going out of the house. And then there's our dog that loved both of us equally. I've never seen a dog that did that before. This dog bonded equally with both of us. And
that's beautiful.
anyway, he was a very special dog, and when she died, he wanted to die, and I had a hard time talking him out of it. Anyway, the last one was a picture of her in her studio, basically working on the triptych. And the whole thing was called What Can Be, and the one on the left with me going off to the office with my bow tie and suit is What Can Be Known. Huh. And the one on the other side with her painting, which she basically finished that with her last breath. I mean, seriously, like a couple of months or a couple of weeks probably before she died. And after she had finished her last session of chemo, because she said it was very hard to paint with chemo brain. So after that cleared, she climbed up and finished it, because she always did that. I mean, she would go over to people's houses with her brush and her palette and say, "I don't like the way that painting is that you bought," and she'd fix them. And they'd get really, "I don't understand what you had to do there." Anyway, so these things, she would always start out saying, "I'm going to do this one really quickly," and you knew that wasn't true. And then, 3 years later, she'd still be working on it. So anyway, it was finished because she passed away. Who knows what she would have done if she were still around. But the middle one is What Can Be Woven, which was about our relationship. And, I have it up in our dining room, and I pass it every day. And it's literally easy to think that she's with us. So thank you for being tolerant. As I told you, you got to take this thing away from me.
How long ago did she pass away?
Huh?
How,
When did she pass away?
When did, 10 years ago. Almost exactly 10 years ago. 2 days after Shavuot.
oh my,
Or the second day of Shavuot.
yeah.
So this is an appropriate use.
Yes, it is. Well, may her memory be a blessing. And oh my gosh, Linda. I'm just gonna, as like all of you, there's a lot of people, my grandparents, but there's just 3 people I want to name and talk about briefly. One is my friend, John Garfield, not the actor, John Garfield, but he was sort of an actor. My friend John, who was someone I went to high school with, and then we were college roommates at the University of Wisconsin. And John was a sweetheart, and he died the year after we graduated. Just dropped dead. It turns out he had an enlarged heart that was undiagnosed. 22, he's, Gabe's age, God forbid. The one thing I always say about John, he died right before Passover. In 1987, I was living in Washington, D.C., and I got a phone call from his girlfriend, and I was 22 myself, and I remember just not being able to understand what she was telling me. How it was incomprehensible to me at the time. But I learned from John to hold the passenger car, the door open for people, because he always did that, And then jumping ahead a number of years, 2008, Alan Sigaloff passed away. I don't know did you know the Sigaloffs? So I spent many, many summers of my life at a very holy place called Camp Thunderbird in Bemidji, Minnesota. Summer camp where I was there 20 summers. It's probably the most special place in the universe for me, except for our house in University City and my family. I grew up there, and I learned to be myself there, and I learned to love the woods and the lakes, and even spirituality. It's not a Jewish camp, but that's where I kind of knew I eventually wanted to be a rabbi. We would have these non-denominational services around themes. And then at the end, anyone that represented a religion could say their prayer. So we had the Lord's Prayer and the Shema and the Serenity Prayer people would do. But even as a little kid, and then as a leader, as a counselor and a director, it was Sunday. It was Sunday mornings, and they were in this incredible wooded space on the lake with these incredible pine trees everywhere. And you'd lean against the pine trees, and when you were a counselor, your campers would sit on your lap and be on your side. And it was just a holy, sacred place. That's where I knew I wanted to be a rabbi from those services. So Alan Sigaloff was the owner and director of camp, and I eventually worked with him side by side. I was his assistant director. That's what brought me to St. Louis for the first time in the early 90s. That's when I met my wife. I met Amy. I was working for Alan. His nickname was Mo because of Missouri, because the camp has kids from all over the country. Anyway, he and I worked together for 4 years as he was the director. I was the assistant director. We traveled together to meet families and to hire staff. And sometimes our relationship was problematic as, a boss and a whatever. I was going to say underling or whatever you want to say. And it was complicated because I knew him as a 10-year-old boy, and then we were, working together. But he was diagnosed at the end with pancreatic cancer. I was there when I remember when he told me at the end of one summer. My kids went to the camp, and we were there to take them home, and Alan told me about his cancer, and then I was already a rabbi by then. He always said I was his rabbi, which was probably the biggest compliment anyone could have given me, because it was him. And when he got back to St. Louis, I went to see him every week till he died in November. So from September to November, weekly, as he got progressively worse. His grandson is a friend of my son's. He was bar mitzvah here, and years later, and Alan gave me his tefillin. He was not religious at all, but his father had given him tefillin, and I remember that I gave it to his grandson before his bar mitzvah. And then I wasn't there when he died, but the family called me, and I was there minutes after he died. They live out in Creve Coeur, and his funeral was here, filled with people from camp. It was like a high holiday service. The wall was open, and I loved him, and he was my mentor and my friend, and I miss him. And
How long ago did he die?
he died in 2008. Yeah.
How old was he?
Mo was 70, yeah. And I'm taking a little sabbatical, like 2.5 months between the end of High Holidays. I guess this is my announcement to the 12 people that are at the end of High Holidays till New Year's 2025. And one of the things I want to do, I've never been to the camp in the wintertime in northern Minnesota, which is probably treacherous, but I've always wanted to see it with snow because I have I'm there in the summer with the lake and the sunshine and the woods, and so that's one of my goals for my sabbatical is to spend time alone at camp in the winter. Finally, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time because it's the end of the year. My mom passed away on June 3rd of this year of 2023, and yeah, I was there. And here's what I'll say. This morning, my son, Gabe, is starting kind of a new chapter in his life, keeping with his political newsletter, but kind of professionalizing it because he's a college graduate, and he's starting with a new company, Substack, and they're promoting him, and he's still going to be free, but it's a subscription whole deal. It's today, it's right now, it's happening. And my mom was Gabe's biggest fan, and she would print, I still have in my basement thousands of pieces of paper because she would print every copy of his newsletter, print it. Like, the reason it's emailed is because you don't have to have a hard copy. But she kept in her house and then her apartment, assisted living at the end, crates and boxes of his newsletter, hard copies. And I told Gabe this morning that she would be anticipating this new kind of format that he's moving into breathlessly and with her finger on the button ready to print this first edition today of what's happening. She was an amazing grandmother to my kids and an amazing mother. And this is the first Yizkor service since the year of mourning ended. So my mom was Linda Randall, and she also had ovarian cancer and Parkinson's. And she was an incredible psychologist and wife and mother and grandmother. High Holidays, she did. So that's the people I'm remembering. May all of their memories be a blessing, and thank you for sharing. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Because what you're talking about with getting going to be dying 14 months and living far long after that made me think of my grandmother, and then kind of realized the 3 people I know who died are all directly related to my grandmother. And yeah, because my grandmother on my dad's side, and it's her mother. First person I knew who died, I was very young, so I barely knew her, but she was a very important person to my grandmother, and it was very influential to my grandmother, it was very influential to me. So kind of through that, I feel like I know my great-grandmother. And then her second husband, who died, very quiet man. I, again, didn't know him super well, but the main things I knew is he loved clocks and watches and Studebaker cars. And around her Tucson house, there was just like a number of just old Studebakers. One of them ran. And when I was a kid, I just loved how they looked. It's probably the reason I have a like of classic cars, is just like seeing those growing, because I always loved visiting my grandmother, and it's just like this beautiful color. They all has like a light blue, very faded by the Arizona sun. They were not like nice taking care of cars, but he loved them and had a huge passion for them. Because that was the only thing we ever really talked about, is go over and he'd be like, "Oh, take a look at my watches and let me show you my car stuff." And we were I was 6, and I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but you're having fun." And I'll listen.
So his enthusiasm would rub off.
Yeah. Yeah, and why that made me think of my grandmother was she's the joke is that she's been dying since she was 30. and she is 83, if I remember correctly. She's very close to 83 at least. One direction or the other. And she's still alive, despite everything. She's
Amen.
still living. She has so many like issues with her, and you know, but she's still kicking. And like it was a huge thing when my dad had passed. She was like, "How am I the one who's been dying for forever?" And yet my son died before me.
Wow.
Because he got a cancer diagnosis and died less than 6 months later. And yeah, and like that was just a huge thing for her, and like I always feel like really bad because like, everyone she knows died. She is like one person in Tucson with her, and you know it's like we can't go visit her all the time, and you know I try to call and stuff like that. I need to call her later. You know, but yeah, and it's like kind of thing that's like I have very minimal effect from like those losses, but it's like it's affected her a lot, and you know, and she's a very important person in my life, and without her I wouldn't be here. Because I called her and went, which synagogue should I be going to? I was like, I want to go to a synagogue, and there's these different ones like near me, and she goes, oh, Central Reformed Congregation, that's where Susan is, right? And I go, yeah, I think that's where she is. She's like, oh, I love Susan. And then I came here, and I love it. And I wouldn't have come here without her, and just like being here, it almost feels like connecting to like that family. Like my dad's family is very, very small. He's the only child. But like I constantly get small reminders being here, just because it's also very much like I can tell how they're kind of very convergent. There's lots of stuff here that I feel like reminds me of him.
Yeah.
From just Rabbi Randy's general existence. Very, very similar, quite honestly. You're a much happier person, though. So, slight stuff up. But yeah, and then just like, I was like talking with Susan, she was telling a story about one of her kids, and I like immediately reminded me of my dad. It reminded me of the stories of how he used to skip class to go sit in on classes at Wash U.
Yeah.
And they stopped trying to make him stop, and they were just like, listen, as long as you just go to the Wash U campus and don't do anything else, fine. He was also a problem child. So they didn't really mind him being gone that much. You know, it didn't help when I was in school. He was encouraging me to be a problem child. Sometimes he hated my teachers more than I did. I'd be like, oh, this teacher's kind of annoying. And he goes, yeah, they're terrible, and here's their revenge plan. And I'd go, they're not that bad. I'd be like, actually, no, I like the teacher. I'm going to back up on this. Yeah, he had some interesting ideas whenever I got in trouble. But, yeah, but it's like, it's nice being around it because it feels like I'm kind of surrounded by that family, even though, you know, they've gone, and it's really only my grandmother left on that side. You know, it still feels like I have that family.
Thank you, Michael. May their memories be a blessing, and may your grandmother keep going. When you said she was responsible for you being here, I thought you meant like in the world, but you meant here, CRC.
Well, I mean, technically that too.
Yeah.
She gave birth to my father.
No, they're both true. Oh, you guys really, yeah. Sure.
David Kaskowitz,
Oh, yeah.
who was a member here, he and I got matched up in the Blessing Buddies program. They paired a young person with an older person in the congregation. So Susan said, oh, you should meet this guy David. He's an artist too. And so I met David, and actually I spoke to him on the phone first, and I said, so I hear you're 90. And he goes, oh, no, I'm 89.
Don't rush me.
Yeah, I know. And I thought, okay, this is going to be good. And we knew each other for like 11 years.
Yeah.
We'd get together and just laugh. I kind of did an unofficial memoir of him. Just I would record our conversations and wrote it up with his kids. But yeah, I'd drive around and show him our murals, and he worked much smaller as an artist, really interesting portraits. But mostly it was like, here was this person who was a friend, and we laughed like all the time. I knew that whenever I saw him, we were just gonna like laugh. And he was, you know, he kind of would act. He would always go, "Oh, I don't know, I just don't remember much anymore." And I went, "There, you're telling me like tons of stuff." You know, very kind of self-effacing. Partially, you know, like what Sarah and I did, you know, giant murals out that everybody gets to see. They're real physical and stuff, and he's working in the sketchbook. So he didn't always feel worthy sometimes, you know. But I have a couple of his art pieces in my house, and I don't have anyone's art up in my house.
Wow.
You know, even my wife, I have one thing that's like 3 by 4 inches. That's it. Oh well, I actually have one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really miss David. I mean, when he died, I just, you know, he was another like irreplaceable person in my life, and just he made my life much richer.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, David Kaskowitz. I used to see him all the time at Schnucks. We were always grocery shopping at the same time. Yeah. Page 183. Let's just read this together. So many artists. We filled this circle with stories of artists, right? Among everyone else, but people that brought beauty. Everyone brings art and beauty to the world. And also these artists we talked about. Physical representations of it. We should be doing the service in the Oneg room surrounded by Sarah's art.
As they say, artists are the canaries in the coal mines of society. And they are.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening buzz and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. So, Yizkor is all about names. For the sake of us and people that are on the stream and people will watch a video, I want to say the names of the people who we've been remembering over the year. And some of them you'll know, some of them you won't. But I want to say their names before we stand up and do the Yizkor prayers. Most recently, Muriel Hartz, who was 108 years old. Arthur Hartz's father and Sarah Hartz's grandmother, just an amazing, I met her at the end of her life, an amazing person. Marilyn Schreier, Leanie's mom, another great person, and thinking about Leanie and John. For Kenan Thimangu, Patrick's father in Kenya. Patrick's from Kenya, and his family is still there. We're remembering Ron Kramer and Lawrence Weinberg, Dr. Eduardo Sladopolsky, and Eleanor Simpson, who did her son's wedding. Gary Sewell, I want to make sure I say that name, Gary Sewell, Ellen's husband. Very sad loss. Anne Lee Frank, Dana Engelhart, Steve and Hillary's cousin. Rhonda Banford, Rhonda was a member of CRC, really involved in our Tikkun alum programs. Philip Needleman, Ralph Wafer, lives down the street with Deb. They'd walk to CRC. Nick Nicholson, Marilyn McLaughlin, Patricia Goldman's mother, Mel Spiegelglass, Marilyn Fox, the mother of Steve Fox, our member, and obviously someone who made a difference in the Jewish community in St. Louis and in St. Louis. Writ large, Arthur Levine, Eileen Ehrlich, Saturday morning regular. Yeah, Michael knew Eileen, and lovely person. Hank Davenport, Ellen Jean Vickery, Rick Isserman, Rick, whose grandfather was Ferdinand Isserman, Rabbi Isserman, and Rick was here for a long time before he moved to Florida and passed away. I hear that Carla, his wife, is doing really well. So. Geraldine Schiller, Myra Levine, Scott Levine's mom, lovely, wonderful human. Gina Rotman, a member of CRC, and Mitch's wife, and very, very young, passed away a few months ago. Yakir Hexter, who was Chris and Shelley's grandson, who died. He was IDF and died in the war in Gaza. Rose Waldman, Sterling's grandmother. Sterling is my child-in-law, married Zoe, and their grandmother passed away this year. Carol Liebson, Miriam Weintraub, June Cohen, Marshall Cohen's mother. Dennis Epstein, Stewart's brother. Jeff Jappa was a buddy. He had 4 boys who all had bar mitzvah here at CRC, and he died in a car accident. I did 2 of his sons' weddings. Jeff was a spark of light. Alex Bornstein, Mindy's brother. Sam Bernstein. Jody Rich, a friend of Maura Maxine's, and Marlene Eisenstein. I think Michael's sitting in Marlene's chair right there, right? Every service, there she would be. And she was Nanette's aunt, but Mariah, who works here at CRC and has been a member here, Mariah's great aunt. Roger Goldman, known as the founder of CRC. Steve, were you around at the very beginning?
I was around before the very
Before the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah, so Roger.
And I met with Roger when he refused to acknowledge that he was one of the founders. You know when he finally acknowledged it?
No.
When we were marching from the chase
yeah.
up here carrying the
Yeah,
Torahs,
yeah.
and he's at the head carrying a Torah. And I said, Roger, you've never acknowledged that you were the first president of CRC. You always said, no, you were chairman of the organizing committee. I said, what are you doing up here at the head of the crowd with a Torah in your hands? He said, oh, I guess I'm going to have to say I was first president.
Good for you.
He was so modest.
Yeah.
Very modest.
And CRC was just one of the things that he, made happen.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so.
Well, yes, he was renowned for his...
police behavior.
For
right.
wanting policemen to be licensed.
Yeah.
So the bad penny couldn't go from place to place.
Correct. Yeah.
And many states adopted it. Missouri is still a little retarded, which of course will surprise you.
So Roger Goldman, of blessed memory. And then Morton Ornstein, who was Joy Lieberman's brother. Joy's doing great. She was here not too long ago. Sarah Kessler, Andy Poltman, Brian and Paula's brother. Both Brian and Paula are members, and their families are members of CRC. Susan Hockman, Tovia Siegel. What's the date today? June 13th. So her yard date was 3 days ago, and Sarah Siegel was a past president of CRC, like Steve was a past president of CRC, and Sarah's been here almost every Saturday to say Kaddish for her mom. And I think that's where we end the year. So we've named all of them, and we've heard the names of the people, right, that we remember in this circle, and I know that there's people that are on the stream that are thinking of names. So let's all stand here, and if you want to stand at home, you can. We'll never know if you did or not. this okay? Okay, on page, first 184, this is the sort of incantation for Yizkor. We say, Zechor Elohim Nishmot Yakirai, which is, we can read it together. May God remember forever the souls of our dear ones who have gone to their eternal rest. May they be at one with the one who is life eternal. May the beauty of their lives shine forevermore, and may my life always bring honor to their memory. Amen. Ilmale rachamim shochein b'amromim chamsei b'nochad nechonat tachat kanfei hashechina im kedoshim u'toharim kazoar harakia mazerim l'nishmot yakireinu shahalachenu le'olamam ba'al harachamim yastiram b'seter kanfav le'olamim v'yitzror b'yitzror hachayim et nishmatam Adonai hu nakalatam ve'aynuchu b'shalom al mishkavam v'nomar amen. That was El Malei Rachamim about our loved ones being embraced by the universe, basically. So we can read the translation at the bottom of 184 together. O God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved ones who have entered eternity. Merciful one, let them find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let their souls be bound up in the bond of eternal life. The eternal God is their inheritance. May they rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. That line about God being their inheritance, the literal translation is, may God be like a river, a nachal, that runs through them continuously. So this, if you think about a flowing river that never stops running,
Kind of like your ocean metaphor.
yeah, just water, so elemental. But this idea of God being like a river that sort of connects all of our loved ones who have passed away. So in a sense, as we've been saying in so many ways, they're still here. So now Kaddish for each and every one of their souls, for the people that we've named and that we loved and lost, for the people whose shoulders we stand upon. I felt that from each of you, to telling the stories of the people, and that we stand on their shoulders in many ways. And then also, we remember names and people who, weren't named at this service, people will never know about. We won't know their stories like we know the stories we heard today. But we mourn loss because we know what it's like to lose someone. So anyone who's a mourner like us, we can have empathy for and sympathy with, because we know what it's like to lose a loved one. So for all of them on this Yizkor of Shavuot, just take one more second and think about those loved ones, think about those stories. We can think about each other's loved ones' stories. Just get just a second, just to conjure them up. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah. Be'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chai echon v'yom echon. V'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. V'agalal v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudisha v'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma ve'emru omein. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, ve'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'emru amen. Say shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'emru amen. Zikronam livracha, may all of their memories be a blessing. Oh, say shalom b'romav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. God bless you all. Love you.
Bless you.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for doing that.
it was an honor. Really,
Oh,
that's okay, I'll collect them.
where you want me to go?
I'm gonna bring them back down to,
Where they belong.
until October.
Wait till October.
October, right.
It's not very long.
Well, let's have summer first.
Yes.
All right.
I'm ready for summer.
You're ready to go to the North Woods?
Yes.
Figures.
Thank you.
Oh, my gosh,
That was
I do.
wonderful.
Oh, it's good.
Like everything else, it has more meaning here.
Yeah, well, good. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
We'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
Last bat mitzvah of the season, Saturday.
Wow, yes.
Steve Skrenka,